Welcome to Stories from the Center of the Universe, the podcast about the human experience.
Nick Shedd, welcome to the Center of the Universe. Appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, I guess we should explain how we connected to you. And Kevin, since this is more your connection than mine, do you want to explain how we connected to Nick?
Yeah, so David, who I'm your cousin?
Yes.
Yes. He lives in my neighborhood. So my middle son and David's younger son are pretty much best buds. So I see David at the bus stop every day. We've seen him walk around the neighborhood, and your name came up. I can't remember. I think it was the Astros were in the World Series or about to be in the World Series, and he mentioned that his cousin worked for the Astros. Like, oh, wow, that's cool. And we started talking about you, and he kind of knew I had a podcast, or we had a podcast. Of course, it's a we, right, Paul?
That's right.
And that's how we kind of connected to get you on. So we appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you said David's mom is the sister of your dad, or did I mess that up?
Yeah. David's mom is my dad's sister. I grew up in Northern Virginia, so we lived an hour and a half apart, and we saw each other on every holiday.
So you're as tight as first cousins can be, and I can't imagine you have like 50 first cousins. You probably have a handful.
Yeah, I've only got a small handful on my mom's side, and that's all on my dad's side. My wife actually does have over 50 first cousins.
my wife is Italian, and so she has like 38.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot to keep up with. We had to have no kids at our wedding for that reason.
Yeah, it's weird which weddings you get invited to, right?
Well, like all of her first cousins now have kids. So now we're talking about adding an extra 300 people to our wedding that we don't know most of. So,
but you are married now.
Yeah, we got married about 4 years ago.
Okay, congrats. We'll talk about that more. All right. So you grew up in Fairfax County. What high school did you go to?
W.T. Woodson High School, the Cavaliers.
Are they known for any particular sport?
Oh, they were at the time. Lacrosse, soccer were the big ones. Up and down in football. Basketball was good. So 2005, my junior year, we won districts in, I believe it was 10 different sports.
Holy cow.
Wow. Yeah, we had a powerhouse year my junior year.
Yeah, and that's not just like 3 or 4 kids that are awesome. That's a bunch of kids that are playing really, really well.
Yeah, it was pretty extraordinary. I think around that time we won it was a couple of years before I got to high school. We won back-to-back state championships in lacrosse, and I think while I was there, I want to say we won it in women's soccer, women's lacrosse, maybe more than once. It's been a long time now. I can't remember it all.
All right, so I imagine when you were a much younger, like 8 or 9 years old, you were playing sports. Where you lived, was it congested or was it pretty spread out?
Very congested. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I actually left Northern Virginia, not to be a Debbie Downer, but like I had a job after college that was 6 miles from my house. It took me 45 minutes to get there. So I couldn't do that anymore. But yeah, there's from a sports perspective, like there's any sport you could possibly want to play. You had your choice of a lot of different leagues that you could join. I mean, everything was accessible.
What was your first sport?
First one, if you don't count the gymnastics that I think was more babysitting that my parents put me in, probably football, probably t-ball. I think I started football, wrestling, and t-ball all around the same time, around 6 years old.
Yeah, that seems like a reasonable age. They're kids starting at age 2 now in some sports.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, you definitely can't start football that young. I mean, I've worked with young kids before, and I don't know, people might hate me for making this blanket statement, but I think up until like 9 or 10 years old, the attention span is no more than 25 minutes. So if you're going to, at least in my setting in a strength and conditioning world, work with kids, you've got to find ways to make it fun and competitive and obstacle courses and random challenges. It's not going to look like a professional athlete's session because you can't get their attention past the warm up.
Yeah, if you get 25 minutes from a kid, you're doing something. Most adults don't pay attention that long.
Yeah.
Yeah, so why those 3 sports, football, wrestling, and t-ball?
I don't know how I got into t-ball. I liked baseball. I played it up until my 8th grade year. Wrestling, my dad was on the U.S. Olympic team for judo, and he was a national champion in judo and sambo. He used to tell me stories about like choking people out and like breaking their arms and stuff. And I think that scared me too much at a young age. So I chose wrestling instead. And I just always wanted to play football. My older brother's about 2 years older than me. So he was 1 grade ahead of me in school. He started everything a year before I did. And I just kind of followed.
Yeah. Your dad with judo and those stories do you think he was trying to scare you and let you know who the alpha was in the house?
I don't think he needed to. I mean, I've seen him catch flies out of the air. No joke. Many times in my life, his hands move extremely fast. I always knew growing up. I didn't have to question that.
So when you say with his hands, you're saying like clap them out or like snatch them with one hand?
Just grab them with one hand. He'll tell you actually when I was in high school, it was a challenge that my friends liked to do while my dad would be sitting there eating dinner. They would try to choke him out and see if they could even get him to stop eating food.
What? So did you stay away from martial arts your whole life, or did you ever dabble in it?
No, I actually started jiu-jitsu about a little bit, probably about 1.5 years ago now.
Okay.
I only did it for 8 months, got hurt twice, and then started this job. And with all of our COVID protocols, I haven't been able to go back. But jiu-jitsu, and I did a little bit of judo as well. Picked that up during COVID.
That's cool.
How old is your dad now?
He just turned 68, I think.
Do you think you could take him?
He'll tell you he's still got it once. I don't know. He's had, I think, 9 knee surgeries. He's had back surgery, hip replacement, double knee replacement. He's not the athlete he used to be, but I don't think I'd try yet.
Well, it's not fair. You know where his weak spots are, right? You can go for the knee. Bye, Dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Not just would do that.
But he still has old man strength, which is a real thing, and he's got tricks. He's got life experience. So
he probably has 10 moves right off the bat that you don't know what to do with.
They might not even be judo. They might not even be fair, but he'll find a way to win.
Yeah, they're pressure points all over the human body.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So what sport did you really gravitate to growing up?
Football. I stopped wrestling in high school because I got tired of losing weight, and I wanted to play football in college. Played Division III football at Averett University. Was a linebacker and a fullback during that time.
And did you gravitate to defense or offense?
More defense, but I didn't really get along with my coach my junior year. So I said, find me a new position, and they put me on offense.
Huh. All right. Yeah, there's something about playing defense where there's a reckless abandon that you can't afford on offense.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. Maybe I had too much reckless abandon. I don't know. But offense, playing fullback's nice because you basically get to have a running start to be. It's like being a lineman with a running start, and I felt like there was an advantage there.
And you do know what's coming, and you do know where your teammates are going to be.
Yeah, exactly. Except sometimes it's your job to keep the quarterback from getting hit. And if you mess up that job, everybody sees it.
Yeah, when you do it really well, it goes unnoticed. When you don't do it well, the whole world knows. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean this in a good way, too. Nick Shedd is a great linebacker or fullback name.
I appreciate that.
I mean, it really is. Nick Shedd, starting linebacker. I mean, that sounds tough.
Funny thing is we at a D3 school, we didn't have the money to just get new jerseys all the time, that kind of stuff. So when I switched to fullback, I needed to have an eligible number so I could catch passes. And my jersey was too small. And so I tried to wear my jersey for one game, and we had to cut down the sleeves because my arms were going numb. So I had to pick a new number. And the only eligible numbers that were available were in the 90s. And you don't see anybody but D linemen wearing numbers in the 90s. I actually didn't even know at that time that was an eligible number to catch a pass. So I was numbered 90 as a fullback. I actually wore that with a lot of pride. I like that. It's like being an outcast.
Yeah, it's like Bernie Kosar back in the day was number 19. Nobody wore 19 as a quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Right. So were you just lifting like there's no tomorrow when you were a young kid?
I started my junior year of high school. So my junior year, I got a speed trainer who actually used to be a strength and conditioning coach for the Redskins and the Giants. He convinced me to start eating and to start lifting more. Between my junior and senior year, I grew about 6 inches, went from weighing 155 to 205. Just hit a big growth spurt during that time, and then really took to it going into college. And I was probably the most meathead kid on the college football team. I loved the weight room more than anything else.
Does that make you a meathead? Just loving the weight room?
And I call myself a nerdy meathead. You know, I still like to operate with some level of intellect at times, but I enjoy working out.
Well, so before your senior year of high school football, how many hours a day would you lift?
Like in my senior year or before I really started?
Like 2 a days summer camp, or actually before summer camp. Before 2 days, how much?
It really got up to about 10 training sessions a week. Most of them were about hour and a half to 2 hours long. 3 of those were speed sessions, and the other 7 were lifting. In retrospect, I should have focused a little bit more on my recovery. I probably would have been a better athlete, but I just cared about being as big as I possibly could.
So you were 205 your senior year. How tall were you?
I'm 5'10".
Okay. So your average height, but you're building a ton of muscle. And by the time you were a freshman in college, how much did you weigh?
I went in at about 210, but during camp, this was a time when the NCAA still allowed 3 a days. So we would wake up, have breakfast, have a 1 hour practice, have lunch, film sessions, meetings, whatever, have a 3 hour practice, come inside. We would get a Powerade and a meal replacement bar while we watched film from practice number 2 and go back out for a 3 hour practice. We had 7 hours of practice a day. I lost a lot of weight during that camp. I think I finished at about 185, but by the time I got to my senior year, I was sitting at about 235, 240.
And you're talking about that much practice, and I get the NCAA rules were different back then, but that's Division III football. I don't think most people, a casual football fan, understands how much kids are dedicating to football at all levels.
Yeah, it's very much serious business. I don't think the lifestyle is all that different from any other division. I mean, obviously there's probably less perks. There's less luxuries involved. But it's still, it's a 6-7 day a week job, and you have to be a student, and then you have to go to practice. You have to come back and be a student at night and get your work done. I mean, it's pretty rigorous.
Yeah, and your locker room's not nearly as nice as Alabama's locker room.
Not quite.
And the weight room's probably not as expansive or as nice.
No, not. I don't think anything is as nice as Alabama. But you play D3 football because you enjoy playing. I think it's funny that at the freshman year, most guys still believe they're going to end up in the NFL in Division III, and then there's like 1 or 2 every year that end up there, but few and far between.
Yeah, I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, and one of our starting 5 offensive linemen is a Division III guy. But yeah, it happens, but it's pretty rare.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We used to play Mount Union my first 2 years, and I want to say my freshman year when we played them, they were like 128-2 under their head coach, and they had a couple guys go to the NFL. Pierre Garcon played for I think 8 years for the Redskins and the Colts. We played against him.
Yeah, he was a heck of a receiver. Yeah, he was nice. It probably didn't seem right him playing at Mount Union though, as good as I imagine he was his junior and senior years.
No, he destroyed us.
Yeah,
it wasn't very fun.
How did you end up at Averett?
I had been going around looking at different schools with my parents, trying to get recruited, and there was nothing that really interested me a whole lot from either a recruiting standpoint or from a school standpoint. And I don't know, I went down and I visited Averett, and I just fell in love with the place. It was a really small school. There's actually less people there than my high school. And I wouldn't have changed that. Looking back, I wouldn't change that for the world. I think if you're looking at what school you want to go to, small schools provide a pretty intimate environment. It has its ups and downs. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody's in everybody's business. But you also have much closer relationships, I think, with your friends, with your teachers. It feels like a small community.
Yeah, your classes are what, 12 to 20 kids kind of thing?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. What's Averett known for?
Gosh, we have an aviation program and an equestrian program. I think those two were the big things.
And equestrian, is that about riding, or is it all things horses?
I wasn't in it. I couldn't tell you. I should know that answer. I learned the word dressage. I know that's a thing. It's about all I know.
Yeah, it's all good. I figured it was small enough you knew everything about the school.
Nah, not quite.
Right. All right. So at what point did you know you weren't going to be in the NFL?
So I spent a year after Averett working out with different teams, Arena Football League teams, Canadian football teams, just trying to get to any open workouts, anything I could to try to get a contract somewhere. And a year into it, my parents had said, basically, we'll support you for a year. And if nothing happens by that time, then you got to move on. And a year into it, I think it was actually 2 weeks past that date, I found out I got into grad school, and that was it.
Yeah, and what was grad school? What were you trying to do it with grad school?
Appalachian State. So that was an exercise science program with a concentration in strength and conditioning.
Okay, and you love working out so much that you saw a career in it. Pretty early.
So at Averett, there was a couple of guys, a couple of my core professors that started something called the functional movement screen. It's been used globally, and it had started off very small. Actually, the idea behind this movement screen started off on a napkin in an airport with these guys, and then they made a business out of it, but they were still teaching. And so I was lucky enough to learn a lot from them as far as more on like the injury prevention, rehab side of things, more on the sports medicine side. And then that really just lit the fire and amplified my interest in that. When I couldn't be a pro athlete, I decided I want to coach them.
And coaching, you knew strength and conditioning was something that you were going to be passionate about the rest of your life.
Yeah, for sure. I've known that for quite a long time. I've dabbled in other areas, more in like the sports science area, a couple other things, but I really enjoy working with the players the most.
All right, so we don't have to go into a ton of detail here, but I'm going to take a divergent path here. Kevin, how much do you weigh, Kevin?
180.
He's probably giving himself 15 pounds. He's 6'3", $165 maybe. He's super thin, right? Sorry,
Okay.
You're 180, Kevin. Sure. By the way, I weighed 180 the last time my sophomore year in high school. And let's say Kevin wants to bulk and he wants to get up to 200 pounds. At a high level, what would you tell Kevin to do? And he's 52, by the way.
I would say first thing, go see the dietitian. I have to throw that caveat in there. If you want to be 200 pounds, you have to eat like you're 200 pounds. You should be eating 200 grams of protein a day. The rest of your carb and fat intake is going to depend a lot on how much exercise you're doing. But I would recommend if you're trying to go from 150, 160 up to 200 pounds, that you are exercising a lot while eating more, or you're not going to like the 200 pounds that you have.
Wow. So that's a good transition to me. I'm Kevin's height, but I weigh 280. Let's say I wanted to get to 240. What would you tell me?
Oh, you're going to make me be mean.
No, be mean. It's all good.
Oh, be mean, please.
You eat what Kevin eats. Kevin, you eat what Paul eats.
I think Kevin's got something going on with his genetic code that you can eat what you want typically, right, Kevin?
No, I can't. No. So what I do actually, and it wasn't even intentional, it's like almost like intermittent fasting. Like I don't eat breakfast. So my last bite of food is usually around 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. I don't eat again until afternoon the next day. I don't know if that's good, bad, or indifferent, but I feel like it must be something.
I'll hold my opinion for you, but I will say I have had athletes that want to do intermittent fasting. If you are trying to lose weight or lean out, there's probably some efficacy to it. But for a high-performing athlete with a rigorous training schedule, you should be eating breakfast.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm not a high-performing athlete. I'm a low-performing dad. So
for high-performing athletes, you'd lean more towards multiple meals per day to sustain heavy working out.
Yeah, at least 3 or 4 main meals a day, 2 or 3 snacks in between that.
Gotcha. All right. So, Kevin, I guess we should trade diets if you want to be 200 pounds. And we're going to have to start working out consistently too.
I'm good,
man. Right. So, Nick, I'm guessing you've been working out since you were a kid consistently. How do you stay motivated? What gets you excited about it on a daily basis?
I go through lulls like everybody else. For me, I've seen with like my grandparents' generation and other people that have not had the education or the means to take care of their bodies like we have now. There's so much education out there. I'm just kind of committed. Like my mom has been a really good example where she doesn't exercise super rigorously, but she has always eaten really healthy. She will go out of her way to do more physical work opposed to doing less. And when I'm her age, when I'm in my 60s, I want to be just as functional as she is. My grandma's now 93 and she's sharp as a tack. And when I'm 93, I want to be like her. I want to be able to party and do whatever the heck I want. I don't want to have to rely on other people. And that's probably my main motivation at this point. I think you go through cycles where when you're young, it's like, I want to be as big and jacked as possible to get all the girls and to be the alpha male. And then if you're an athlete in college or professionally, there's a hint of that, but also like, I want to perform really, really well on the field or in my sport. And then you get to a certain age where you're like, okay, my body hurts and I just want to feel better again. And I want to make sure I always feel good. And that's kind of where I'm at now. Gotcha.
All right, cool. Being a vegan versus a vegetarian versus I'll say pescatarian versus like you eat everything under the sun and still somewhat healthy. I don't mean like ice cream every night. I mean like standard food. Are there can you be a high performing athlete on any of those diets, or in your opinion, are some of those diets better than others?
I have to give the caveat, I'm not a dietitian, so there might be people that argue with me. My answer is no. One in 1,000 can be a high performing athlete and still be a vegan. Pescatarian, fine, because you can eat all the fish you want all day long. But a vegan or vegetarian, it becomes very, very difficult. People out there will tell you, well, you can get all the protein from XYZ sources, eat all of the legumes in the world, and every plant has some source of protein, but the reality is the quality of that protein is not the same, and the volume of vegetables, grains, legumes, anything that you're going to have to eat to get adequate protein, nobody does, and nobody eats the variety that they need to get all of the different amino acid profiles that you have to. The majority of athletes I've worked with that have switched from a regular diet to a vegan or vegetarian diet have started wasting away in terms of muscle mass, and within 6 months to a year, they switch back. Excuse me.
Yeah, and there are exceptions to that. I think there was a documentary made about 8 guys that played for the Tennessee Titans a few years ago, and they all said they were vegans, and Obviously, they were high-performing athletes. Now, I don't know how long that lasted. Maybe that only lasted for a season for them. There's another guy that we talked to on this podcast, played for the Browns. He's in his early 40s now, and he's a freak of nature. He can lift just about anything and any exercise in a gym. And when you ask him about what he eats, what his favorite food is, he'll say things like broccoli. And I'm like, I don't know how you sustain yourself on being a vegan. That diet just doesn't seem to be something that can last for a long time. But he's been doing it for 8 years, and he still goes to the gym every day. He's fine. But I guess there are exceptions to everything. But I think the general rule, what you're saying, it sounds right to me.
Well, and let me paint this picture, because we do have a major league player that is vegan, but in professional sports, I'll just use our context. We're required to provide players a lunch, a pregame meal, and a postgame meal. So if they show up around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we've got a night game. They already have 3 meals laid out. We've got chefs in the back that if players don't like what is put out on the buffet, they can go back to the chef and just say, hey, make me something else. So you now got a ton of resources to help you support that diet and that lifestyle. Whereas if you don't have access to that, you're probably not going to spend the hours a day cooking and preparing food that you need to actually perform at a high level. Most people won't.
Yeah, so if you have the support staff there for a professional organization like that, it's doable. But yeah, average Joe's going to have a really tough time doing that.
Correct. And people will tell you, I think the number one selling point that I hear from people that have become vegans or vegetarians, that they feel so much better. And I think so much of that just comes from you're now eating the amount of vegetables you should have been eating, and you're no longer deficient in anything. And that solves a lot of problems.
What about vitamins in the form of pills? Do you subscribe to that?
Yeah, they're fine. I usually would prefer like a morning and evening multivitamin over just a once daily. Once daily is still better than nothing. But your body can only absorb a certain amount of each one of those micronutrients at one time. So usually spreading it out tends to be a little bit better. We tell everybody that, the food you put in your body comes first, supplements come after that. We still recommend that all of our baseball players take multivitamins.
Gotcha. All right, let's go back. You were at App State. Were you a full-time student or were you doing it part-time and working?
Oh yeah, full-time, yeah.
Okay, and then that was a 2-year program?
Yeah, 2011 to 13.
All right, so when did you get your first adult job where you were doing 40 plus?
So right after grad school, I did a post-grad internship that was full-time. It was a paid internship with the U.S. Army Special Operations Command in Fort Bragg as a strength and conditioning coach. And
Nick, hold on a second. Those are some elite dudes. Like I'm a retired Army guy. The SOC community, they are no joke. You're a pretty young guy, and you're down there as a strength and conditioning guy.
Yeah, it was a unique experience. It was a lot of fun. No shortage of funding at that level, and you get to have a lot of toys. It's also a very serious business. The stakes are the highest with the military. As far as the training world is concerned, stakes are higher there than they are anywhere else. But it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, well, and you're dealing with all the special ops guys, right? SEALs, the para jumpers from the Air Force, Force Recon, Marines, all that.
Yeah, there was a mixed bag. Yeah.
You don't have to answer this question, but which one's the toughest?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Because there's a guy behind him looking through his window about to take him out. He does.
Well, I feel like people base that question off of whose boot camp or whose selection process is the hardest. The reality is they're all badasses, and they all do things that most people couldn't fathom. So to me, it's like arguing over Michael Jordan versus LeBron. Like, it's just greatness, and that's
yeah. Look, that's my answer too. They're all amazing, fantastic people that have unbelievably high pain thresholds.
Right.
I can't comprehend the mental toughness it takes to do what they do over weeks or even long days. And yeah, the pain that they put their bodies through. Like they do things that the average person, if you think about what they're talking about, you're like, that's not possible. Nobody does that, but they do it without really a second thought.
I would challenge the average person to just put a 60-pound kid on and go through one work day.
Yeah.
Even allowing them to sit in a chair. I don't think most people can do that.
Mm-mm.
I'm convinced most people can't do that.
All that being said, though, Jordan's the GOAT. Sorry, go ahead. Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Kevin is a massive Air Jordan fan, so much so that he had ARJRDN on his license plate.
Wow, nice.
It was a long time ago.
He started liking them right after they won their first championship, and then he stopped.
Oh, that's he's so full of
yeah,
shit.
Yeah, it's all good. So, how long were you an intern with special ops guys?
I think it's 4 or 5 months.
It's how big is the staff for strength and conditioning there, roughly? I mean, are you talking about a team of like 4 or 5 folks, or is it a lot bigger than that?
No, so at that time there was three or four full-time strength coaches, 2 interns, and a dietitian, and then also physical therapists.
So a lot of their physical training is outside doing what I would consider non-standard things, just because that's what the job entails. Were you guys trying to standardize in a non-standard world? In other words, were y'all in the gym a lot, or were y'all just wherever you needed to be and you were doing whatever the training called for?
A little bit both. So most of it was in the gym. Most of it was focused on getting them stronger, more powerful, able to function within their job. There was a little bit of crossover where we would work with other departments and try to, I guess, bounce ideas off each other, try to create a little more specificity to the environment. But in most part, like, I'm not equipped to train people for military operations, so just stayed away from that.
Got it. So it was more standard what you guys were putting them through, and then anything beyond that is what the military called for.
Right. Yeah.
Gotcha. And were you a contractor? Is that the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And
hey,
what was?
I ask it?
Yeah, go ahead,
Ask a
Kevin.
corny question. Sorry, because I'm good at corny questions. Was there one like badass that stood out in that 4 or 5 months, like woman or man, that stood out that you were like, wow, that person right there is scary?
There was a few of them, but honestly, the ones that scared me were not the same ones that the other operators would come up to me and say, hey, that guy's a badass. Some of like the most gentle, quiet guys were the ones that they would say, not watch out for that dude, but that dude, that guy has respect around here,
I like it.
It's usually the quiet one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They let me do some fun stuff. I got to play with some toys. I feel like I shouldn't say it on air, but I got to do some fun stuff. So,
well, no, all that's as long as the commander's cool with it, it's all good, man. Yeah. Yeah, and that we won't talk about the details of that fun stuff, but there's a lot of fun things those guys get to do too.
We'll say there's no shortage of ammo in special operations.
Never.
That's great.
Yeah, in fact, I imagine the pecking order is special ops guys in the combat zone, and then special ops guys in training back in the States, and then the combat guys that are conventional get ammo after the training stuff for the special ops guys. Yeah, I'm a conventional guy. That's why I say that. Yeah. Cool. So you were there for a few months, and then that had to be weird. Like you couldn't have anticipated most of that experience. I can't imagine. But what did that lead to?
Yeah. So right after that, my parents had moved to Aiken, South Carolina to retire, and I was looking for my next full-time job. I moved in with them. The school right by their house, USC Aiken, it was a Division II school. At the time, they were ranked in the top 5 in the country in baseball. I wanted a free place to work out because I had no income, and they didn't have a strength coach. So I went over there and I bartered with them. I said, I'll be your strength coach for your baseball team if you let me work out in your gym for free. Done deal. Did that for about 6 months and then moved to Richmond.
So before we go to Richmond, why baseball?
Because I looked online and that was their best team.
Did they have a strength and conditioning coach for any of their teams?
No, not at the time. They do now, but they had 2 athletic trainers, no strength and conditioning coach.
Wow. Okay. And all right. So you're in Aiken, South Carolina. You're biding time until the next thing pops. What popped in Richmond and what brought you here?
So Bon Secours Sports Performance, it's a big hospital. You know the hospital system in Richmond. So
Sure.
At the Redskins training center downtown, that's one of the sports performance locations. So I was a sports performance coordinator overseeing everything going on at that location. We grew into having another coach, massage therapist, dietitian, and then worked alongside the physical therapy staff.
So walk me through like a typical day or a typical week in that role.
That was a tough job because it was a new location when I started, and I was the only one training people. So you have to make your training hours when people are available, which means prior to 8 a.m. and after 5 p.m. So it was pretty much like 14-hour days most days. I was working with everything from kids groups to AAU basketball teams, general population, special needs populations. It was basically the full gamut at that point. Since it was a new venue, it was like take in anybody that can keep the lights on and just grow.
And so a doctor said, hey, you need PT, and Bon Secours, the company you work for, provided that PT, and it could be anybody the doctor sends your way kind of thing.
Yeah, so the big thing, there's a lot of hospital systems around the country that have sports performance or some kind of fitness training center available. And the big thing is it's usually pretty cheap because the hospital system is not relying on that to make direct revenue. They rely on the downstream revenue. So you're training athletes, an athlete gets hurt, they go see a Bon Secours doctor, they go see Bon Secours physical therapist, and then they come back to you. And so that was like the main setup of the business.
Yeah, it's the concept of sports performance hasn't been around for that long, has it?
No, Nebraska was the first NCAA team with a strength and conditioning coach, Boyd Epley, back, I want to say that was in the 70s when they won a bunch of national championships. The field it's growing slowly. Well, now it's growing rapidly, but now even, for example, high school strength and conditioning, when I was in high school, it was just your coach. Your coach just told you go in the weight room, whatever plan he had, that's what they did. But now there's a whole section of this profession of really highly qualified professionals that work in the high school setting.
Gotcha.
So Nick, who are some of the studs, I guess, or the guys or girls that you look up to in your line of work or in your profession that have done it for a long time, or who are the people that you guys look to for new things and how things are going to go in the future?
For me, a lot of those people are in Europe and Australia. That's where a lot of the really good research comes out of. Looking stateside, I don't know. There's nobody that you would know their names. There's nobody that's really commercial in that sense. I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but
throw me a name.
Kier Wenham Flat. He has a website called strengthcoachnetwork.com, and it's one of the most highly qualified websites, networks that you can be a part of, and tons of like educational materials on there, lots of forums and thought sharing and that kind of stuff.
That's cool.
And he's actually English but lives here now. He lives in Richmond, actually.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What brought him to Richmond?
He wanted to work in American football, and he had a background in rugby, and he worked at U of R for, I think, a year, and then William & Mary for a couple of years.
And where's he now?
He's full-time with his website. And
oh, wow. Okay. He turned that into a full-time gig.
Yeah, I think he's doing pretty well.
Yeah, good for him.
He also got into real estate. He bought a house, paid it off, sold that, bought a four-unit condo unit, and I think he's trying to fix that up. And so he's a smart guy. He's investing in many ways.
He's living his best life, and he's diversifying what he's doing. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's a big topic of conversation. The strength and conditioning industry right now is needing multiple streams of income, because especially when you work in professional sports, at some point you are bound to get let go for one reason or next, and you better hope you have something lined up.
Gotcha. So you mentioned Europe and Australia is where you look for a lot of folks that you would look up to or want to learn from. I noticed on your LinkedIn that you're pursuing a PhD from the University of Auckland. How does that work?
So when COVID hit, I was trying to actually go to New Zealand to do my PhD there. I traveled there with my last job quite a bit. Love the country, and AUT is one of the top sport and exercise science schools in the world. And that was the intention, to move there for like 2.5 years, 3 years with my wife and just have fun, go to school. And COVID shut down their borders. And so now I'm here with the Astros, also doing that at the same time. I've been blessed. The Astros have given me their blessing to use the baseball players for my research, because it is mutually beneficial. And yeah.
Yeah, I said University of Auckland. I should have said Auckland University of Technology, right?
They are two different schools. Yeah.
Got it. And so, so you go to AUT.
Yeah.
So you're doing it effectively remotely. Are you ever going to get to full-time there, you think?
No, but and I might go for graduation or something, but I'm a full-time employee and full-time student.
That's got to be tough, right? Pursuing a PhD is not something you just do 30 minutes a day.
Yeah, no, it's supposed to be about 25 hours a week. It's certainly not easy, but at least it's something I'm passionate about.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so the gig after sports performance at Bon Secours, where'd you go after that?
Went to Virginia Beach, worked for Exos. Exos is a big private training company across the country, and we were working a little bit with Naval Special Warfare, doing some educational stuff with them. Also, just working with all kinds of athletes, mostly soccer players, volleyball players. We actually had a world champion sailor at one point, a couple of surfers. And did that for 1 year. And then I moved to Pennsylvania, took over as the head of strength and conditioning for the U.S. women's national field hockey team, and did that for 3 years.
So what you're doing, you're passionate about, it sounds super, the diversity of people you're working with is fantastic. Like a surfer, a sailor, a field hockey player for the U.S. women's team. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I think my diverse background has helped me get to where I am today. Our industry likes to peg people as like a private sector guy versus a team guy, or you're like a college football guy. I think being able to work with different populations, especially people with MS, people with various physical limitations, it's helped spark creativity in my mind, which has made me a better coach.
How much of what you are training people to do is things you've learned along the way versus you creatively trying to problem solve for whoever the individual or the team is?
That's really hard to differentiate. I think now in my role, I lean on my experience quite a bit. I lead a staff of 12 to, I think this year might go up to 14 or 15 people. And a lot of what I do is traveling to our different locations and taking a global look at what's going on, and then trying to apply practicality with the science and mesh those two things together. It probably goes for this for everybody in their career, but like right out of college, you're leaning on your textbooks and your curriculum to drive everything that you do. And then you start to find that there's other ways to do it. But I'm also always just embedded in continuing education. So there's still an educational component for sure.
How did you end up with the Astros?
So I started looking when I realized I wasn't ever going to get to New Zealand. I started looking for jobs again, and I actually wasn't going to apply to this job because baseball is a very traditional sport, and I hadn't worked in it, and I thought I had no chance. And my wife kept telling me I needed to apply, told her no for about 6 days, and finally I applied, and then it's like a month-long interview process and got the job.
Was Houston the only Major League Baseball team that had an open position?
The only one that had an open position at the head level that was publicly advertised. They're not always publicly advertised.
Gotcha. All right. So, and I imagine it's a full-time, year-round gig, right?
Yeah. Things slow down a little bit when you get into the off season, but in a leadership position, there's still quite a bit of work to do, rehiring staff, preparing for the upcoming spring training. But it kind of shifts from like a 10-hour, 12-hour day job to a 4 or 5 hour day job.
Is it during the season? Is it more thinking about how to make the players physically better, or is it more administrative, or is it a nice mix of the two?
So I like to look at my role as primarily working on the system, not in the system. I try to, but not sit behind a computer all the time. It's important that I spend time with the players. I will work hands-on with the players and get involved in special cases where I need to, but it's my job to make sure that our coaches have what they need to be as successful as possible. So it's probably 60% admin, 40% coaching, asking questions, talking to different staff members of different departments, and trying to facilitate positive change.
Hey, Nick, can I throw a couple rapid fire questions at you just around you working with the Astros?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Pound for pound, the strongest guy on the Astros.
Oh, God.
Hold on. You put him on the
Garcia.
spot. Hold on. Before you answer that, Nick, how does Jose Altuve hit a ball so daggone hard, being 5'4" or whatever he is?
That's a very good question. So power is force times velocity. And actually what you're looking at when somebody hits a ball is momentum, which is mass times velocity. And essentially the velocity of that bat is dictated by how fast you can accelerate it. So typically being very, very big and strong will allow you to hit a ball hard. But the other side of that power spectrum is velocity. Jose Altuve moves about. We use force plates to measure guys' power, so they do like a regular looking jump on a force plate. His takeoff velocity, so as he's leaving the ground when he's jumping, is like 6 standard deviations above the rest of the organization. He's an absolute freak athlete, and we don't preach to our players, you should try to be Altuve. We preach to our players, you should get bigger and stronger because Altuve is a unicorn, and most guys can't do that.
Yeah, and look, for the casual listening audience here, when you say 6 standard deviations, a normal range is 2 standard deviations, right? You just went 3x the normal range, and that's where Jose resides. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's appalling to see. I mean, when we test guys on our sports science equipment, there's back-end algorithms that will filter out faulty tests so that when we upload them into our athlete management system, we're not looking at a bunch of bogus numbers. We actually had to change our algorithm to allow his numbers to upload because they were getting filtered out.
So basically, he's the answer. He's the answer to that question, and you don't have to go. So let me ask you this.
Hold on. I didn't mean to interrupt in that way. Get back to your rapid fire. Sorry, Kevin.
No, that's okay. No, I was going to think it might be Jose Altuve. Is it someone else?
The biggest, strongest guy, I would say at least one of them is going to be Luis Garcia.
Yeah. Okay.
We have 250 athletes, so I apologize if I'm slighting anybody. But
yeah, I know, and I didn't want to put you on the spot, so my bad. Right, but let me ask you this: so you being an athlete your whole life, you're now working with guys that are at the top of their profession or the top of this sport. Tell me a time when one of them did something that absolutely amazed you.
So Framber Valdez, he's a left-handed pitcher. He had a broken finger during spring training. And I was working with him on his rehab, and everybody was like, don't let him go crazy. He was just starting to play catch again. Everything's supposed to be super light. The finger's not fully healed yet. And this is the first day I've ever worked with him. So I like literally had just started the job, had no rapport with him at all. And he picked up a ball and threw it across our 70-yard turf on a rope right into the side of the batting cages. And I was like, Framber, what the heck, dude? And somebody else came over and whispered to me that was his other arm. So he can throw righty and lefty. He can throw about 85 miles an hour with his right arm. He actually used to pitch right-handed before he switched to pitching left.
Wow.
I had no idea.
That's amazing. That's amazing. All right. So here, and this is more of a, not even a sports related question. You travel with the team, right?
Yeah. No. So
no. Okay.
As the head of strength and conditioning, I oversee the strength and conditioning at the major leagues and all of the minor leagues. We have 2 guys that are embedded with the major league team. So I will travel to Houston. Sometimes I'll travel with the team, but for the most part, like I'll meet a team in one location and then go meet another team in another location, because we've got major leagues, AAA, AA, high A, low A, 2 rookie ball teams, and 2 teams in the Dominican Republic.
Okay, I was gonna ask what your favorite ballpark was, but which you still may have.
Well, people might hate me for this, but the Atlanta Braves ballpark is the only one besides ours that I went to this year, and it is a beautiful
Awesome.
ballpark.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunate that you chose the one team that beat the Astros at the end. Yeah.
I got to give them credit though; it's a nice ballpark. It's brand new.
Yeah, I've been to it. It is a very nice ballpark, and funny, I'm an Astros fan. I've never been to the Astros park.
Oh, come on down! It's an experience. With the roof closed, it gets rowdy.
I can imagine. Are you in Houston during the season, or are you in Florida during the season because you're going to so many different places?
So my home base is here in Florida, and then I'll go to Houston. I was there for the whole postseason. Usually I'll go for like a week at a time and then go to another minor league affiliate. Our sports science and strength and conditioning and athletic training has primarily been housed in West Palm Beach. We have coaches, we have sports scientists in Houston as well, but we have coaches everywhere. The goal that we're trying to shift our whole organization to is to having our head of nutrition, head of sports science, head of strength and conditioning housed in West Palm, so everybody's under one roof. This is where we have spring training. It's where we have our rookie ball teams, and it's where we do our long-term rehab. So if anybody is hurt for more than typically 7 days, they're going to come to West Palm to carry that out.
Yeah, it's most people don't have any clue what the world's like below the major league level, but there's a lot going on there. And if you manage that system really well as an organization, you too can be competitive in the playoffs.
Yeah, we pride ourselves in not being a money ball team. Of course, we will sign high dollar players, but we believe a lot in player development, which is a blessing for me because we put a lot of emphasis on the importance of strength and conditioning. But you ultimately, if you can scout and draft and sign better players and develop more players into major league quality, then they're either going to help your team or they're going to provide trade value that's going to come back and help your team in a roundabout way.
All right, this is going to be an unfair question, but what's more important, strength or conditioning?
In baseball, strength.
Okay. Nice. I did not expect a quick, decisive answer. All right.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So when I was coming up, and Kevin and I were in our early 50s, guys just worked out on their upper body. Like it's almost like anything below the waist didn't exist. Like nobody did anything with their legs. Today, I imagine so let me back up. If you're going to work somebody out for a day, a typical workout, walk me through warming up through a typical workout.
Complex answer there. So we do early in the morning, we'll do stretch with our players. If it's position players, we'll basically stretch is what they call warm up in baseball. So we'll take them through stretch, and then they'll either have a speed session immediately following that or an aerobic conditioning session. And then they go work on their baseball skill, whatever it is for that day, the batting cages, defensive work. Our pitchers, similar concept, but we will warm up. Then they do their throwing program. It's either flat ground or they'll throw a bullpen. And then we do their speed work or their conditioning after that. So all that's done in a block in the morning. And then athletes will trickle into the weight room after that. Lifts are usually about an hour long. Every guy typically has a prep routine as well. So like if you're throwing in a game that day, or even the position players, after all of that, when we get towards, say it's a night game, they will come back in and do a little bit more to get their bodies ready to go for the game that night.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how important is rest? Because you had mentioned that earlier, that you didn't have a full appreciation for recovery.
You ask me, it's really important. You ask the league. We play 162 games a year. So, I mean, I think that's pretty telling in and of itself. No, it's tough because our conundrum is we are with our players for 6 or 7 months out of the year. And so in theory, if you have a 5-year contract and you're only training them in the off season, you're only actually developing your guys for 50% of their contract. And that's not real fruitful for anybody. So we try to develop our guys, make them physically stronger, more powerful, faster, etc. in season, but they also have to perform on game day. If you're in the major leagues, it's a win now league. If you're in the minor leagues, you're getting evaluated every day. You don't want to get sent down. You want to get sent up. So there's a lot of detail, a lot of sports science technology testing that we do to try to dial in our prescription of exercise so that we're making guys better, but we're not hammering them to a state of fatigue and they can't perform.
Yeah, so performance post-workout is as important as the workout, if not more important.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Cal, you're old enough to remember Cal Ripken.
My favorite player of all time.
Oh, nice. Are you?
I had to school some young players recently on this now. So some of our players, we were talking about who's the best at every position. We're talking about shortstop, and they left Cal Ripken off the list. And I said, hold on a second. I brought his name up, and they said, oh, he was durable, but he wasn't that good. And then I brought it up on Google, like 19-time All-Star. Like, oh, we didn't realize that.
Yeah, he wasn't just some guy who was pretty good playing an infield position, and the Orioles weren't great during his time there. And so, yeah, sure, he got to be durable, but he was awesome.
Yeah, he was one of the best shortstops ever.
Absolutely. So with what we just talked about with how to think about sports performance or performing on a baseball field, can you fathom what it took for Cal to do what he did and perform, to your point, at such a high level?
No, you will never see another baseball player do anything like what he did. I don't think you'll ever see a baseball player play a full season and play every single game. There's a lot of load monitoring that goes into that now. That's a catchphrase. You're starting to hear it on TV and basketball a lot, but looking at actually how much guys are running in games and trying to find ways to measure their levels of fatigue and that kind of stuff. And I mean, the travel schedule, especially at the major leagues, is so rigorous. Guys need days off if you want to keep them healthy. And it's astounding that he went, I forget, 2,000 something games and never broke down enough to have to sit out.
Yeah, I'm sure he had some aches and pains, but yeah, he didn't break down to the point that he couldn't perform.
Yeah, and there's another side of that too. The agents for the major league players have, I think, a little bit more influence. I wasn't there working in this league 10 years ago, but I had a conversation with Jeff Bagwell. He's an advisor to our GM now, longtime Astro, and he was hammering me about why are guys so soft now? You know, I don't care if your neck is broken, you should be out there. And the reality of it is that the agents want to preserve their guys as well. They want them to perform, but they also want to make sure they're being protected. So there's a lot of stakeholders.
Yeah, Bagwell is one of the best Astros of all time, and he was part of the Killer Bees back in the day. Yeah,
he's a legend.
He's awesome. And you want to talk about a guy who could all the physics you were talking about, he had high numbers on all those units of measurement for sure.
Yeah. When I met him, I kind of laughed because he shook my hand. He said, "Hi, I'm Jeff." It's like, yeah, I know who you are. I appreciate your humility.
Yeah, and he's what, 5'10"? He's not a huge guy.
No, but he's in his 50s and he's still built well. I told him he looks like he could still play, but he said his shoulder's too bad.
Yeah, those bodies can't last forever, right? Doing what they do.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so this may feel like a little bit of rapid fire, and you may not want to answer these questions, but who's the funniest Astro? You've been with him about a year, right?
Yeah. Major leagues, I would say probably Zach Greinke, or I think Jose Altuve is pretty funny.
Yeah, Greinke's the only guy that's, I think, in recent memory that's thrown like a 48-mile-an-hour eephus pitch. I mean, who does that?
Yeah, he was looking forward to being able to hit in the World Series, and he ended up getting 2 hits. In his first hit, he got on first base and put a puffer jacket on in the middle of running the bases in the World Series. You see that sometimes in spring training. I don't think you see that too often in the World Series.
Well, and it was in Atlanta, and I get that it's late in the season, but it's not that cold in Atlanta.
Now it was like 50.
Yeah, it's pretty cold for Atlanta. Yeah.
But he has like the most strikeouts in history below 75 miles an hour.
That sounds right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And Altuve's got a good sense of humor too.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. He's a really nice guy.
Who's the all right, so is he the nicest?
I don't want to say that. I'd be taking. I think they're all nice. Most, like, all of the guys are fun to be around. They're all
Pretty down to earth.
Yeah.
Who's the most intellectual?
Oh God, I don't know that I've spent enough time with them. I might have to go back to Greinke on that. He really enjoys. So he's kind of a savant. And he really enjoys scouting. So he's not like super involved with our scouting, but I've heard stories that there's been like lists of names and numbers handed to him and advice taken. He's a really smart guy.
Right on. Have you met Verlander?
I have not. So he was gone this whole year doing rehab.
Yeah, but he's still an Astro, right?
He is. Yeah, we re-signed him. So I'll meet him in spring training.
Yeah, he's from this part of the world.
Yeah, Goochland.
Yeah. He's the pride of the Goochland High guys. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. In the off season, pretty much everybody disperses and we shut down aside from like sending guys programs. And now we're in the lockout, so we couldn't talk to anybody that's on the 40-man rosters right now anyways.
And what's the point of that lockout? Just to give them time away?
No. So there's a collective bargaining agreement between the league and the players union. And I think it's every 3 years that expires and they have to renew it. And so they go through these negotiations. And if the negotiations basically don't come to fruition by a certain date, then all communication is ceased. You can't sign players. You cannot have any communication with guys on the 40-man rosters. It's like a total blackout until they get that done.
All right. What's the best part of your job?
Number one is wearing shorts and a t-shirt to work. Number two, to me, it's just helping players get better, watching them achieve their potential. I know it sounds cheesy, but that's why I do it.
Well, that's a pretty powerful reason, right?
Yeah.
All right. What's your fondest memory with the Astros so far?
Winning the ALCS was incredible.
And you got to go to Boston, right, for those games.
So I was actually staying in Houston, working on rehab with one of our players while the team was traveling on the road. I was there for the home games.
Yeah, that's tough. So yeah, you have there are more important things that need to be done in Houston than going to the Red Sox game. It's not all glamour.
No, it's all hands on deck. We have the 2 major league strength coaches. We also had we bring a taxi squad in the postseason, so like 6 or 7 guys from AAA/majors that are not on the official roster. They're basically reserves, so we bring our AAA strength coach with them. So we don't need 4 guys on the road, basically.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I had no idea how the world was structured. When I had a decent feel for what was happening with major league teams and their farm systems, I imagine there wasn't, like 30 years ago, that none of what we're talking about existed, right?
No, and it's still very different from one organization to the next. The food quality, the food or nutrition budget, the way the staffing looks, the equipment accessibility, it can vary quite a bit from one org to the next.
Yeah, I can imagine. And the ones that want to win, they're investing in all the places they think will help them win.
Yeah, my only reservation on that, you take a smaller market team like the Rays that has been very successful, and they've been very creative in what they're doing and actually just changing the way that they're coaching players, and they're sort of revolutionizing baseball in some aspects because of that. So I think everybody's trying to win. It's just there are certain problems that you can throw money at and fix them, and the larger market teams are able to do that.
Yeah, it's always nice to see. Look, I'm an Astros fan. I wanted them to win the World Series, but it was nice to see the Braves win, and they're not spending money like the Dodgers or the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Padres, actually.
Oh, whatever.
It doesn't matter how good your team is if you don't have them all in the postseason, and that's when the pitching rosters shrink, that's it's like playing a different team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Tell us about your family.
So I have my wife, Jackie. We met in Richmond in 2014, I think it was. She's been with me everywhere. She moved with me to Virginia Beach, Pennsylvania, back down here. And now we have a dog named Cusco, who, when I was with the U.S. Women's National Field Hockey Team, we were at the Pan American Games in Lima, Peru, and he was a street dog, a stray, just running around the village trying to get food from people. And I brought him home. So,
do you know how old he is?
Yeah. So the vets said when we got him, he was about 8 to 10 months. So he's about 3 years now.
Awesome.
I thought he was a lot older than that. And then I think what happened was he wasn't very healthy. So he was acting a little bit slower, more timid. And then when we got him healthy, he exploded with puppy energy.
Yeah, puppy energy is something, man.
Yeah. He's never destroyed anything, though. He's always been food motivated, so he's easy to train. He's honestly one of the best dogs I've ever had.
Where'd the name come from?
So Cusco is the town right outside of Machu Picchu.
Okay.
And I would have named him Lima, but that sounded like a girl name.
And he's not a girl.
No.
Cool.
And that's similar to your dog, Phil, because Paul found that's probably your favorite dog ever in a landfill.
Yeah, we named him Landfill Gilman, and he's no longer with us, but he signed his name L. Phil Gilman because he's kind of fancy that way. Yeah,
Phil.
Fill, Phil. Yeah, it's good times.
Nice.
Cool. And then you talked about your mom and dad a bit, and you have how many siblings? And your brother? Is he your oldest?
Yeah, my brother's an athletic trainer. He oversees like 26 schools up in central Pennsylvania. Lives in Altoona.
Okay. Altoona is like the mecca of football, right?
Oh, I don't know. That's where Sheets, the gas station, that's where Sheets comes from.
What am I thinking of? Where's Dan Marino, Joe Namath, those guys? Where are they from? Aren't they from Altoona?
No, I think I think they're from more east in the state. I don't know. Don't hold me to that.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm sure I'm wrong, and I'm also not going to look that up. Yeah, it's all good.
Altoona is in Pennsylvania.
Yes, it is. You're the only other person that says Pennsylvania that I know.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Yeah, you've got Philadelphia, you've got Pittsburgh, and the rest of the state is Pennsylvania.
Yeah, when we lived in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, we actually lived in Lidditz, just north of the city. It's the highest Amish per capita in the U.S., and I was literally behind horses and buggies on my way to work.
All the time.
Every day. People don't believe me, but like normal traffic wasn't a thing. It was Amish country.
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt. Lancaster's dominated by the Amish.
Yeah.
No question. All right, Kevin, you want to hit him with the question that we asked at the end?
Yes, sir. All right, Nick. So you are a late night TV host tonight. You have one show. and you need to pick a male guest, a female guest, a musical group, and a comedian. And this could be someone that's dead or alive, someone from your past, Jesus Christ. It could be anybody. You could be going for ratings, or you could be going for just the Nick Shed show that you and your family enjoy.
Oh God.
This is meant to be somewhat revealing, Nick.
Yeah, I see that. So you said a male guest, female guest, a
Music group,
music
and a comedian.
group, and a comedian. Male guest, Elon Musk. Female guest.
Oh, hold on, let's back up. Why Elon?
I just think he's brilliant. I think he's hilarious. He might actually fit into the comedian category if that was his full-time job. No, I think he's brilliant, regardless of like people's political views, whatever. I think it'd be really interesting to sit down and talk with that guy. Female guest, Malala Yousafzai. I definitely am not saying that right.
Oh no, she's the Afghani young lady.
Yes.
Oh, she's a badass.
Yes, she's the one that got attacked by, I think it was the Taliban, and been pushing for women's rights and big time activist. She's a badass.
She's a complete badass. Has fear of nothing. Like she is just does what's right, and regardless of what that might do to her. Yeah, she's amazing.
See, that's a great guest.
I don't know if you've ever seen the David Letterman show on Netflix. My next guest needs no introduction, but she was on there. And that's where it sparked. I think she's a fascinating person. How many people would be told, hey, you need to leave because people are going to probably kill you if you don't? And you're just like, no, I'm not going to leave.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Yeah, so her musical group. Well, this isn't fair because David's brother is like a world-renowned jazz musician. So that's not fair.
Really?
Jared, if you're listening to this, I'm excluding you from this.
Yeah, Jared doesn't count because, we'll put him to the side.
Oh, man. I'm going to have to go with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
All right, yeah, nice. You can't go wrong there.
No, they just seem like fun. I don't know. Comedian Bill Burr.
I love Bill Burr. That's
Bill
great.
Bill Burr has more guts for a comedian than 99% of them.
Yeah, I think with the cast I picked, you can't watch my talk show if you're easily offended. There's going to be some controversial things said there between Elon Musk and Bill Burr.
Yeah, I was going to say your first and your last. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. It's a fantastic show. Great answers. And by the way, if you haven't heard the helicopter story by Bill Burr, you should YouTube it. And that's for you guys probably have, but just YouTube helicopter story Bill Burr. It's fantastic.
I have not heard that.
Check it out.
Yeah, I haven't either. All right, so what are you looking forward to the most with the upcoming season?
Now that I'm going into my second season with the team, I'm looking forward to going into it with a sense of awareness as to what's going on around me. We have a lot of projects, I think, that are going to keep pushing things forward. We take pride in our organization of being one of the orgs that's on the forefront of technology and being able to affect change as far as getting guys to hit balls harder, throw balls harder, et cetera. And I'm just looking forward to continuing that sort of cutting edge pursuit. And that's why we do it, for the competition.
Yeah, and to your point, it's really cool to go into your second year because now you have a baseline for what the whole ecosystem there is.
Yeah, first year was very much travel around to the affiliates and just try to get your bearings, get to know the coaching staff, get to know the players, and you kind of have to get that global perspective before you can really start affecting change.
Very cool. Well, Nick, I'm very glad that Kevin's bus stop buddy is your first cousin, and I'm glad we were able to do this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. I know Kevin mentioned another podcast you were working on and that you're bringing in old guests. So if there's ever a need, let me know.
Oh, yeah, we're all over that. And by the way, thanks for the plug for Bumper Night. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Thank
awesome.
You, appreciate that.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd also really appreciate if you'd rate and review us. You can find us at scodupodcast.com.